Hello guys, this is your friend and we are back with a new fanfic. Which is What If Kushina Gives Naruto Overpowered Full White Time Chakra Part 1. And if you enjoy this fanfic then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel Naruto fanfic series for more fanfic like this. And now let's start the fanfic. Naruto left Tazuna's home, still sore all over. Just this morning they defeated Zabuza and Haku, driving off the mercenary and freeing the land of Wave from that thieving backstabber Gato. He examined his own hand, that just a few hours ago was about to kill someone, however he stopped abruptly when he felt something wrong in it. His chakra felt strange, there was no other term that came to mind. There were lingering traces of the red chakra he used against Haku, but it was hunted down by his own, somehow. Hunted down, surrounded and then dispersed. Weird, he exclaimed, dismissing it almost immediately. After all, for what he knew about chakra, it could very well be normal. He wasn't the dead last just on paper, after all. Deciding to drown his own gloom with physical activity, he decided to climb trees again. Even if he tied with the bastard just a couple days ago, he just had to show him off by saving him from a bad fall in front of Sakura-chan. Damn him. He ran to the tree, sticking his feet to the trunk just as he learned, but the tree exploded under his feet and was propelled away, just like the very first time he tried. How? He asked himself, examining his feet. And again he felt those lingering traces of that red chakra and he realized it was obstructing his hard-won control. Angry and unthinking, he molded a large amount of chakra and sent it to his feet, to try to purge that red annoyance away. He succeeded, a little too much, blasting away a good chunk of earth from under his feet and propelling himself a dozen meters off the ground. His fall was also much less than graceful, knocking his wind off, bringing stars in his vision and laboring to get his breath back. He sat down on the ground, waiting for his head to clear and promising himself to be much more careful in the future, when he noticed that the stars in his vision were not going away. Not only that, they were combining somehow in a sort of multicolored small flame. It was really pretty to watch. Naruto, he heard somewhere in his head. A female voice. An adult female voice with a hint of urgency. What? Who? He jumped on his feet and looked around, kunai ready in his hand. He was still a little woozy, but he could stand. Naruto, can you hear me? The voice sounded even more frantic, now. He became very nervous. Who are you? He yelled, panicking because the voice sounded really close and he couldn't pinpoint the direction. Naruto, I hope you can hear me, even if I cannot. We are sending you a scroll with your inheritance and I have no more time. Copy all of it in an empty scroll as soon as you can because it will disappear in a few hours. We love you, honey. As soon as the voice disappeared, the strange multicolored flame coalesced again and transformed in a medium-sized sealed scroll, and dropped into the ground with a soft splat. What the? He exclaimed, surprised again. Especially by the love you part. Just the old man dared to tell him he loved him, not even Iruka-sensei. Well, he could understand Iruka-sensei not telling him that. Still wary, he approached the scroll cautiously and read the writing outside, Uzumaki family scroll, basic 1 inch. His heart jumped in his throat reading that. Uzumaki family scroll. He asked aloud and jumped to get the scroll, not even thinking about the possibility of falling into a trap. He grabbed the scroll and tried to open it, but failed. He examined the seal keeping it closed and remembered from a half-forgotten lesson, probably he was just listening to facilitate his sleep, about blood seals, to protect family scrolls from outsiders. He bit into his thumb, wincing because in his haste he bit a lot more than was strictly necessary and swept a couple liters of blood. Well, it felt like it, really. On the seal. And his eyes lit up, because from the very first words, it looked genuine. He started avidly reading it, but then he remembered the little fact about it disappearing in a few hours. He realized he could never be able to remember all of it, especially because there were a lot of hard words and technical stuff about chakra that he didn't have any idea about, but all his stuff was still at Tazuna's. Thinking quickly, he summoned a clone and sent him to gather an empty scroll and writing utensils from his pack. Good thing that it was Kakashi-sensei that compiled the list of things to bring into a mission, else he would have used that space to pack a few more instant ramen cups and he would have been forced to borrow ink and brushes from someone. And they would have asked questions he wasn't ready to answer. If the scroll was telling the truth, those were his family jutsus. Something from his family, a proof that they existed somewhere, that someone could still be alive to send this scroll to him. Someone who could be happy that he existed, despite the fox, that would be happy with him becoming the Hokage. Someone who could acknowledge him. He continued reading the scroll, and became frustrated. It really was too complicated for him, but he didn't dare to ask even Sakura-chan. She would assume he stole it from Sasuke and would give it to him immediately, subdued by the will of the bastard into ignoring the fact that she truly loved Naruto even if she did not realize it yet. But she would realize it someday. However, he would not give up. He would not give the scroll up, either, not even to Kakashi-sensei or the old man. This was the first step to becoming Hokage and be recognized as a human being from the village. After all, having a family would mean that he was a human, wasn't it? The clone returned, slightly tired from running all the way from the house, and prepared to write. Naruto started dictating it, but not before creating 100 clones as sentries. Nobody would listen in on his family jutsu. 6 hours later he finished copying the scroll. It was a lengthy process, especially because he didn't know the meaning of most kanji and had to copy them exactly as they were written. However, he could get the most important thing: he had a bloodline. At least the scroll said so, but he couldn't understand what the scroll said about it, just that it was something about healing. Well, considering that he healed pretty fast, it could be considered proof. Take that, Sasuke bastard. He literally had to restrain himself from yelling aloud from excitement. 4 clones had to tie him down and gag him so the bastard would not hear him, and despite wanting to brag to Sakura about it, he would wait until he could read, understand and use what was in the scroll. After all, it would be even more impressive if he could show her, right? He was about to close the original scroll when from its back fell a letter, addressed to Uzumaki Naruto. He jumped to it immediately and read, "Dear Naruto, I'm sorry about how your life has been until now, and I still cannot forgive myself for having to leave you alone all this time. However, it could not be avoided, because even now, I am dead. My name is Uzumaki Kushina, mother of Uzumaki Naruto." Naruto stopped reading abruptly. From his mother. And she was dead. The little hope he had about meeting his long-lost mother died then and there. He did not realize the strange wording of the dead part, though. At least I know she hadn't abandoned me. She even arranged for this to come to me, he said. Looking at the family scroll. I know that by now you are dying to know your father's name, but we asked the third to hide it and letting you have my last name to protect you from his enemies. Damn, exclaimed Naruto. I can tell you that even by knowing my full name it won't be easy to find his name. Consider it a challenge to your information gathering skills. Naruto smiled, even if he didn't have much interest in the less showy aspect of the ninja life. Just to get to know who his father was, he was willing to rise to the challenge. However, for your protection, you'll have to keep my name for yourself. After all, if you have a chance to know your father by knowing it, your enemies may do it too. Naruto nodded, thinking that his mother was really smart. Now, since I don't have much time, I'll have to give you the introductory information to fully utilize the scroll that came with this letter. Even if it's the very first scroll of the Uzumaki clan, it still relies on previous knowledge that would have been taught to you by me. Naruto exhaled a relieved breath. So that's why I couldn't understand most of it, forgetting that not only he couldn't understand most of the scroll, but couldn't read most of the kanji as well. To understand the scroll, you'll have to borrow from the Konoha library these books: Understanding Chakra, The Chakra Pathways, Basic Guide to the Elements, A Basic Guide to the Human Body for the Dedicated Ninja, and the restricted book, The Celestial Gates. 5 more books, cried Naruto, his resolve wavering, before he reminded himself that this would help him become Hokage. After all, enduring boredom made a great ninja, didn't it? I can tell you that getting the last book will be hard. Only Jonin and above may borrow it, but I know that you will be able to get it somehow. A Jonin-only book, it must be awesome, exclaimed Naruto, imagining all the incredible jutsu it must contain. Now we must come to the most critical point. In the scroll you'll read about our bloodline, the white chakra, however you probably won't be able to access it until you put a lot of hard work into it. Why? Cried Naruto, not caring that he was complaining to a letter. The reason stems from the day you were born. You have to know that the dead demon-consuming seal the 4th Hokage used to seal the demon fox into you, is the ultimate Uzumaki demon seal. It was designed with our bloodline in mind. If the 4th used any child but you in the sealing, he or she would have died almost instantly and the fox would now be free. Naruto was shocked. Soon the shock transformed into pride, however, because now he had the answer that plagued him since he could remember. Why me? Why they hate me? Became easier to accept after the traitor Mizuki spilled the beans about the fox, but then the question became, why the 4th chose me? And now he had an answer. Konoha was saved by his family jutsu, and the only possible container able to live though it was Naruto himself. He could understand now why the 4th wanted him to be seen as the hero who saved the village, even if they blatantly ignored that request. Eager to know more, he continued reading. Our bloodline normally makes our chakra so attuned to life that it destroys Yuki on contact, purifying it. However, the dead demon-consuming seal redirects that ability toward the seal, to kill the imprisoned demon. While that seal is on you, your chakra is perfectly ordinary, as if you didn't possess our bloodline. Stupid fox, yelled Naruto. Not only he kills everyone and probably my parents, but he also is stealing away my bloodline. However, the seal has a failsafe built in it. When you are injured, the seal will partially release its control and both Yuki and white chakra would flow to the injury. While the Yuki does increase the damage to the area, your bloodline will both heal it and purify the Yuki. Unfortunately, it means that it is a rather painful process. I hope you can see it as a pain endurance training, because it was inevitable. Naruto's sweat dropped. He never noticed that his injuries hurt him more than other people. After all, it's hard to quantify pain to others. Another reason to hate the fox. The reason any other child would have died lies there. The seal forces your chakra and the demons to mingle. Yuki would easily infect the child and corrode his body, stopping the chakra that powers the seal and freeing the demon before the host died. With our bloodline, the reverse happens. Our white chakra purifies the Yuki that is slowly released from the demon in a controlled way, and with the scroll's help you will be able to willingly force more of your chakra into the seal, slowly killing the beast. Another way is losing control of your emotions. When you are experiencing a strong anger, your instinct will take control of your bloodline from the seal and the Yuki would flood your body, being consumed at an incredible pace by your white chakra that would work frantically to keep you alive. It is doubly dangerous because Yuki not only damages your body, but influence the human mind as well, making you feral, a berserker. And remember that even with its enhanced strength and speed, a high-level Jonin would use your almost mindless state to run circles around you, and afterward, when you are calmed down, Yuki residual will linger for a couple days, temporarily worsening your chakra control. Naruto nodded, having noticed it on his skin a few hours ago. He still had an evil grin at the thought of killing the damn fox with his own hands, and in the meantime to be rewarded for it by having back his bloodline. The thought of having that task entrusted to him by the 4th himself was making him so happy he had rivers of tears on his cheeks and his smile was threatening to split his face in half. To be trusted to do something of that magnitude eclipsed anything he could think of except becoming Hokage himself, naturally. He almost exploded right then and there from happiness, resisting the urge of parade through waves, screaming his joy to the winds only because he wanted to keep his secret. It took him half an hour to calm himself down enough to continue reading. Unfortunately, I'm almost out of time. If you want to know more, you'll have to summon a pyryfly as explained in the scroll. Really? He checked the scroll again. It must have been one of the unrecognizable kanji. Sigh. I'll have to study. He cried in dismay. Farewell, my dear Naruto-chan. I hope you'll be happy from now on. With love, Uzumaki Kushina. Bye, Mom. I love you too, said Naruto, before deciding that he wanted a copy of this letter, too. A copy as faithful to the original as he could manage. Since it was almost dinner time, having skipped lunch in his excitement, he left to the clones this task, with the order of making a perfect copy of the letter, even if it took them all the night to do it. Walking to Tezuna's house, now, there was another problem. The original scroll had a blood seal on it, and he copied it faithfully, but he had no idea on how to activate the seal on the copy. He mentally added to check out a beginning book on seals from the library, as first priority. He could not let this scroll end up in the hand of Sasuke or an enemy without at least that protection. He summoned another clone to bring secretly both scrolls in his pack, while he ate with his team. Obviously, as soon as he entered, he was greeted by a screaming Sakura. Where have you been, Naruto? Because you went away, I had to guard Tezuna while they finished the bridge instead of looking at Sasuke-kun. But, Sakura-chan, it was only right, after all. If it wasn't for you, Sasuke-kun would have won. Right, thought inner Sakura. Naruto felt a stab in his heart. She was right, mostly. If he hadn't entered the mirrors, maybe Sasuke wouldn't have become a pincushion, or at least not as much. But to assume so instantly that he had completely hampered Sasuke, instead of helping him. Memories of himself and Sasuke fighting together to defeat Haku flooded his brain. Sasuke's sacrifice came to mind and he realized that he really has been as much an hindrance as a help. He tried to dismiss it as usual, by trying to think that without him and his awesome skills Sasuke would have been reduced to a pincushion even faster, but his previous roller coaster of emotions reading his mom's letter made impossible for him to delude himself as he usually did. He had been dead weight in that fight before Sasuke died. He unthinkingly put himself in a death trap and forced his hated teammate to save him from death, even if Haku had been too soft-hearted to kill them. His only help to Sasuke has been as additional targets for Haku to concentrate on while Sasuke did the hard work. And he had to rely on the power leaked from the seal to defeat Haku, a power he didn't want to rely upon, because the fox would die soon, if not naturally, because he would kill it. And he would learn his family jutsu to become a ninja worthy of the fourth, who put his faith on his newborn self. That would be his goal from now on. Sakura continued her tirade, not even noticing that Naruto was no longer paying attention. Kakashi, however, did, and even though he didn't know exactly what he was thinking, he could guess it from his body language and smiled inside. Sakura, winded from her lecture, finally stopped when Sasuke came to the table to eat, and she immediately tried to mother him, telling him of her boring day because of Naruto's laziness and asking for dates all in a single breath. Even Kakashi was impressed. Upstairs, a clone finished packing the scrolls and transformed himself into a third scroll to guard them further against thieving Uchiha teammates. Better paranoid than scrollless. Later in the night, a clone, bringing the letters from his mother, silently slipped them inside that same pack and left the room to dispel itself silently. The voyage home was uneventful, if you discount the entire wave country thanking them and almost throwing a festival in their honor. Even if they didn't learn of it, they even named the newly finished bridge after Naruto. Fortunately, they wouldn't discover it for a long time for Kakashi's peace of mind. On the last leg of the way home, Naruto was locked in a circle trying to convince himself that he had to read all those books to become Hokage, arguing that it was too boring to do it, then slipping away into thinking that those books and his scroll would let him kill the stupid fox. Years of habits were warring against ambition and, dared he say it, justice against the fox. He was so focused on that thought that he almost collided with Sakura when they stopped at the gate for identification. As soon as they passed the gate, Kakashi turned toward the genin. I'll report to the Hokage, but you have the next 2 days free because you did so well in the mission, and disappeared in a whirlwind of leaves. Sasuke darkened at the thought of his performance against Haku, swearing to himself that he would not lose again, but he guessed that now, with his Sharingan finally active, he would improve exponentially faster. He was sure that after a couple weeks of training with his bloodline, even an enemy like that boy would be insignificant to him. He would finally be able to catch up with that person and finally kill him. He ignored Sakura's plea for a date, as usual, and left to unpack and train. He had a brother to murder. Sakura, dejected, left without a word. Naruto, left alone at the gate, decided that he should secure the scroll. As the voice said, the original scroll and letter disappeared during the night. He actually remembered seeing them vanish in a shower of pretty colored lights, just like that flame he saw after he blew himself up. It was strange that he remembered, after all he was sleeping while it happened. Ah, it wasn't important. Not as much as hiding the copy under a loose floorboard in his apartment, foregoing even a welcome back bowl of ramen at Ichiraku's for half an hour more than strictly necessary to ensure it was safe. He reflected on the fact that he really should place some more traps in his apartment, now that he had something truly irreplaceable in it. Prank traps were not enough anymore for the protection of his scroll. He sighed and added, something about traps, to the list of the 5 books and, something about seals, that he wanted to check in the library. Well, about that he could ask Iruka-sensei, too, without anyone suspecting anything. Satisfied for the moment, he let his feet guide him automatically to the really used road to Ichiraku's ramen. Ayame and Tsuki were really wonderful people, a great audience even to the most hated boy in Konoha. They laughed at the right moments, stayed focused in the most dramatic scenes and were even appreciative of the little embellishments he added to liven up the story. The fact that he saved Sasuke and Kakashi single-handedly from a horrible death wasn't that much of an exaggeration, right? He was reaching the point where he was about to wipe away the mercenaries with over 1,000 clones when Iruka arrived. "Iruka-sensei!" exclaimed Naruto, happy to see the Chunin instructor. "Hello, Naruto. How was your first C-rank mission?" It was hard, sensei. Well, the client lied," said Naruto, in a small voice. While he didn't mind embellished stories for Ichiraku, Iruka-sensei preferred the truth. He learned very well that lesson during his stay in the academy. "L lied. In how much he lied?" Naruto asked a worried Iruka. Since the boy looked happy, he guessed the mission was a success, so he wasn't too worried. Nonetheless, there was a really rich person who hired missing ninja to kill him. Naruto confessed. He awaited the explosion any moment. Instead, Iruka became icily calm. "What kind of ninja?" A couple Chunin, the demon brothers, and Momochi Zabuza, the demon of the hidden mist alias the eyebrowless freak, and his sidekick. Iruka became very pale. An A-rank missing nin. Naruto could only nod. Tsuki took pity on the boy and told Iruka. Naruto here was telling us how well he and his team did against them, Iruka-san. Iruka sighed, and ruffled Naruto's hair. "I hope none of you were seriously injured. Sasuke and me were hit by a few Senbon, but nothing a night's sleep couldn't fix," he said, downplaying a little their injuries. Sakura-chan was completely unharmed. "Then I guess it was a good experience for what a Chunin or Jonin usually go against in their missions," he said with a sad smile. "After all, with a higher rank there are both higher dangers and responsibilities." Naruto nodded. Then he remembered what he was thinking before. He prepared himself to tell an almost truth to Iruka, hoping he would forgive him, eventually. "Iruka-sensei, can you teach me more about traps? Well, I need to protect my home a little more. Kakashi-sensei gave me a couple scrolls that I cannot bring with me everywhere and my home may not be secure enough." Iruka nodded. He really felt a little sorry for Naruto's situation, but while as an academy student he could have been in trouble if he set up dangerous traps to catch thieves. As a genin he was allowed semi-sensitive materials, such as D or E rank jutsu scrolls, not so valuable that a genin could not repay it back even with the meager pay of D rank missions, but still as jutsu scroll they were restricted from civilian use and he was allowed harmful non-lethal traps to protect them. Still, he didn't have that much free time. Naruto, I just have a couple hours in the evening free, usually, and I may need them for backlog paperwork or grading. But I can give you 2 evenings a week, starting tomorrow. However, you must promise me that you will give your maximum effort in it, or I'll stop. Thank you, Iruka-sensei. I promise you I will give everything I have. Believe it, he said, grabbing reflexively his leaf forehead protector and hurrying home, after leaving the money for the ramen. Once there, he reread his mother's letter, and tried to imagine her from her few words. He also remembered her challenge to find out his father's name. What should be its priority? Well, first to protect the scroll and the letter. So seals and traps, he mused aloud, trying to not think about how much hard and boring material would be required for it. I will have to, I cannot even think of it. Go to the library. He rechecked the book list. The anatomy book sounded interesting, or at least useful. Next probably he should read that, Understanding Chakra. He really hurt when Sakura told him he was an idiot for knowing so little about it. The rest should wait until he read that one. And I should study the layout of the library to get that Jonin book later, too. At least, I hope they have it. But as he thought about it, the more likely it was that a restricted book would rather be in a restricted area, such as Anbu headquarters, the Hokage Tower Library or somewhere as secret as the book itself. I also need a higher level kanji dictionary. I'd better buy that. He checked his Gamma-chan wallet and noted it was still pleasantly plump, even after 5 bowls of ramen. And he had yet to get his last mission's pay. Tomorrow it will be a long and boring day, he said before changing into his pajama and going to sleep. He looked at his enemy. He was fat, balding and had a terrifying weapon in his hands. In the past he already experienced it many times, when he had to buy his academy schoolbooks. That weapon was currently in use to clean the porch of his shop. Yes, he had very bad memories of that broom. Surely it was lead-plated. However, this time he had a secret weapon against it. One he didn't have last time he dared to confront its awesome damage potential. Well, now he could henge. And he did so, entering as a random academy student, and restraining himself from making faces at the man while he selected and bought a medium and advanced kanji dictionary. After all, better safe than sorry, right? After feeling overjoyed at outsmarting the evil shopkeeper, he decided to keep the transformation up for a while. He never got to try out his endurance with his new control after the tree climbing exercise, and it may be important in his next mission, to infiltrate Konoha Library. In a standard ninja mission ranking, for anyone native of Konoha who wasn't Naruto would have rated it somewhere near the letter K. Enemy ninja probably would rate it AC since, like Naruto guessed, there were no jutsu scroll or sensitive information in it. Naruto, instead, would rate a high B rank mission for it. The one time he tried to enter it, to borrow a schoolbook the evil broom shopkeeper wouldn't let him buy. He had been sent away with extreme prejudice. And a hand on a kunai, ready to stab him. He didn't try again, until today. He tried to remember everything Iruka and his previous sensei told him about espionage missions when he entered the building. Having never been inside and since nobody ever explained to him how a library exactly worked, he nervously looked at a row of books, trying to look as if he was looking for a specific title while simultaneously trying to spy on the few people already inside the building. They say that adrenaline sometimes lets the body do incredible things if stressed enough, and he surely demonstrated it since he managed to keep under surveillance 7 different people without them noticing, an incredible feat for the clumsy overactive genin who lived by making himself seen his mission in life. He quickly realized that most people who were looking for specific books were looking at some strange cabinets in a corner, then going with purpose toward a goal, finding their book with ease, then going to read, while people who wanted something nebulous, such as his book on seals, simply searched for the right category, then browsed the titles on display. He decided to find the seal book, as he decided yesterday, and went into the ninja section of the library. He almost gaped. There were thousands of books here, divided into subcategories. Some of these titles were interesting, and he promised himself he would take a little time to read them. They would surely help him become Hokage. He reached the miscellaneous ninja books. Since there wasn't a section dedicated to seals, probably seals were too sensitive to be kept in an open library like this, but he found an introduction to storage seals that, even if it didn't look like what he wanted, it looked really useful. Make your own exploding tags and surprise your neighbors, made him almost literally drool. He loved those little exploding tags, but they weren't cheap, not at all. Dismayed in not finding about blood seals, he took those 2 books and brought them into the reading room. Even if neither of them was what he needed, they were a treasure mine to Naruto, making leverage on his pranking instinct and sparking his imagination about seeding 200 exploding notes into a trap to punish Sensei's lateness. He had to make heavy use of the medium kanji dictionary, but he no longer complained for its expense. Taking copious notes from the books, he left 4 hours later when he felt the strain of the henge, and left before being discovered. After a quick lunch he tried to make his first exploding tag. 30 tries later he managed a successful one, and 2 hours later he had 15 tags ready to be tested in a training area. He was surprised on how well they performed, almost like store-bought ones, and he thought that this branch of the ninja arts had definitely potential if results were as cool as these. Leaving a clone to craft tags in his apartment, he returned to the library using the same disguise, took again those 2 books and continued reading them until evening. He returned to his apartment to get the tags his clone made in the last few hours. After all, Iruka may make him use them. Leaving the clone to continue making tags, he left for the academy building. Naruto, over here, came the greeting from Iruka-sensei as soon as he approached the building. He saw Iruka-sensei in the practice area and joined him. He saw a few different traps already assembled. Since your grades in trap making as well as trap detection were horrible, I'll start from the beginning. Any questions? Naruto thought about it. It really was depressing to have to do those lessons again, but without a teacher out to ridicule him instead of teaching, he may truly learn it this time. Then he thought that Iruka-sensei may help him with seals, too, or at least praise him for it. It wasn't as if storage seals and exploding tags were restricted to genin. Can you check them, Iruka-sensei? I made them this afternoon. I tried a couple of them and they worked well. Naruto passed the small paper slips to Iruka, who examined them with a surprised and, he hoped, impressed expression. These are good, Naruto. And I can see them getting better one after the other. I didn't know you were interested in seals. They are very useful in traps, you know, but at that level you should really ask your Jonin sensei. It's his responsibility to teach you genin level skills and above. If you manage to pass my course with good grades, I'll make a joint request to Kakashi-san. Really? Asked Naruto, overjoyed on the thought of finally having something he could beat Sasuke at. Not that he admitted that even to himself. The next 2 hours were filled with the basics of trapping, and Naruto made incredible progress due to his extreme motivation. Iruka himself could not believe it. He managed to learn more in 2 hours than he did in half his last year at the academy. Was it all due to motivation? Returning home, he saw another 50-pack of exploding tags ready to use, put them away and fell asleep, barely noticing the memories of himself making hundreds of tags, learning to make better and better ones. He still didn't notice it even the next day, when he repeated this day's events, making tags and finishing with physical and chakra training by climbing another tree while throwing kunai to a target. The 2 days reprieve from his team came to an end and he found himself again waiting for Kakashi-sensei. Not wanting to be seen reading academy-level books by his Sakura-chan, he simply waited, after naturally asking her out and being rejected again. But instead of idly waiting, he revised mentally the steps of making the explosive tag. He had yet to make a successful storage seal. They were much harder than the tags, which were unstable by design, and required a much more firm hand. He realized his handwriting was horrible, due to very little practice in the academy, so he had to overcome that little handicap to do good seals. Nonetheless, his tags were now solidly store level. It was a wonder they were so expensive if they were so easy to make, but it was probably the time needed to make a good amount of them that inflated the price, but he could take advantage of this, a little henge, and he could sell it to a shop and make a little extra pocket money if he needed it. 2 hours of waiting and Kakashi-sensei finally appeared. They did their customary useless D-rank. Naruto got mauled by Sakura for asking her out and was ignored by the bastard. But he managed to not screw up anything. After a little team exercise, they were left free for the afternoon, where he practiced storage seals until he managed to make a working one. It could only hold something about the weight of an apple, but it was a start. This evening he had his second appointment with Iruka-sensei, and got another 2 hours of trap instruction, much harder than before and much faster than 2 days ago. Evidently Iruka realized his awesomeness, too. He showed him his first successful storage seal and he complimented him for it. He was so giddy that he blurted out without even realizing it his need for a blood seal to lock his personal scrolls, and to his surprise, Iruka simply nodded and promised him to let him borrow a book on the argument for his next lesson in 3 days, provided he managed to perfect his storage seals in the meantime. Naturally, he worked on it almost day and night, both to make Iruka proud and for the protection of his scroll, that he had not dared to pull out of its hiding place since the first night and was waiting to be able to protect it at least with genin-level traps and the blood seal. His team meetings were ridiculous compared to Iruka-sensei's instruction. The only things they did was team-building exercises and a little sparring. Even the library was more useful. He managed to find a book in the ninja section about infiltration, especially on how to falsify documents. He needed to borrow the books listed in Mom's letter, at least the 4 non-restricted ones, but the library would never let the demon take them, and if they knew he was interested in them they would likely take them permanently off the bookshelves. Furthermore, they were restricted to genin level and above, so he couldn't just henge into anyone and just ask for them. That meant either impersonating some other genin, that could lead him into an ocean of trouble even with the old man, or a completely new identity, with a forged ID, that he could get away by explaining his circumstances to the Hokage if he ever got caught, with just a token punishment, as long as he didn't use his counterfeit identity to get material he wasn't already entitled to as genin. The book suggested that in an environment where people were familiar to the shinobi, he should use a disguise as far as the original as possible, so no one would likely associate the two of them even if he was somehow betrayed by mannerism or ingrained habits. A timid black-haired girl would be good for the disguise, but it would be hard to do, especially with his flamboyant personality. He even had to lay off the orange, he was too well known for it. Not too attractive or he would be hit on by guys. Better not think about it. Leaf headband on her hips, since he always had it on the head, white and black dress, not too fancy, still to avoid male eye and naturally no whisker marks. Those were hard to get rid of, a result of Yuki in his system, he guessed. He hoped that by killing the fox they would finally go away. It took a whole week to create the disguise using his Orochi no Jutsu and a second one to learn a new set of mannerism for the girl, who Naruto named Akiko Awasa, a genin in the reserve list with no listed Jonin sensei, complete with a medical history of a few training accidents cured by a retired civilian doctor that moved away to the farmlands with his family. He was tempted to let the old man Hokage know about it, especially because he realized his identification would not hold against something more than a civilian-level security like the library, to avoid being mistaken for an enemy ninja. But he realized that if he told the old man, he would tell Kakashi, who would tell Sakura and Sasuke just to tease him, and he would never hear the end of it. He didn't even consider that the Hokage could give that knowledge to Kakashi as sensitive information or that Kakashi could be trusted to not tell it to the rest of the team. Sometimes the fear of public humiliation is worse than the truth, and he had been betrayed once by a teacher, so he would not give ammunition to someone he wasn't sure didn't hate him. Sure, Kakashi-sensei didn't seem to hate him, but neither did Mizuki, and the way he insisted on teamwork while neglecting their personal training showed that he didn't care about them as individuals, but just as his soldiers. That or he was so incredibly lazy that made Shikamaru look like an overactive jumping monkey. He just hoped on the lazy theory. Admiring his new Genin library card, Akiko brought home the first of the 5 required books, Understanding Chakra. He realized that Mom's letter may have given that order of books on purpose, so even if the anatomy book was inviting, he was now fascinated as well from Chakra, after having witnessed its versatility in seals. Reverting from the henge away from prying eyes, he returned to his apartment and moved away the book on seals that Iruka lent to him, just like promised, an introduction to seals, a Genin to Chunin level introductory book on the basics of sealing. Thanks to the book, he now knew why the exploding tags were so much easier to do than the storage seals. The former were E rank and the latter was a C rank seal, and that would mean he jumped from a difficulty rated around the level of an average academy student to a high Genin 1. Excited from the prospect of finally making way into understanding his family legacy, he took both the dictionaries and the new book and began reading. Sakura was worried. His undesired teammate was really strange lately. A week ago he started bringing books to the team meetings and began to read while they waited for Kakashi-sensei. She was glad for the reprieve. If Naruto was reading, he wasn't ogling her or pestering her for dates, or worse, making Sasuke-kun think that she may be even remotely interested in that baka. Even now she asked herself if that idiot did graduate just to spite her and get in her way, getting attention from her Sasuke-kun, and, even the thought of that sparkled her rage anew, stealing his precious first kiss, even if accidentally. He must die, raged inner Sakura following that thought. She again admired Sasuke, her hands coyly under her chin, making loving eyes on the dark-haired youth, hoping against hope that he finally realized his feelings for her and got away from his shyness to reciprocate her feelings. 2 hours and a half later, Sasuke still hadn't looked at her. Naruto was still immersed in his books and her arms were hurting from her prolonged stay in that uncomfortable position. Yo! Hailed Kakashi, as usual appearing in a swirl of leaves. You are late! Screamed Sakura, as usual, too. Ma, you see. Don't even start lying, interrupted Sakura, tired of hearing the same old lies. Kakashi seemed to fall into a deep depression. They left to get another D-rank mission. Sakura thought that Sasuke's skill were being wasted by doing menial chores. That was Naruto's job, but not even her could do anything about it. After such an intensive mission step up in rank, for their level, there was a mandatory period of low-stress missions, unless it was wartime. But if those were low-stress missions in the Lord Hokage's mind, she couldn't fathom what high-stress missions were. That damn cat was more slippery than a soaked and buttered eel. Those damn brats were a nightmare and those dogs were bigger than her. She sometimes really wished to be as cool as her Sasuke-kun, unflinching despite everything. But at least she wasn't as much dead weight as the dead last Naruto. From what she could see during the sparring matches they sometimes did after the missions, he hadn't progressed at all since Wave, at least not in comparison with his Sasuke-kun. His Sharingan red eyes were so handsome and powerful. He creamed Naruto in even less time than usual in every match he used them. Inner Sakura completely agreed with her. Naruto was a lazy good-for-nothing. All he had for himself was an incredible stamina, but his lameness precluded his use even as a shield. Despite that, he still hadn't learned that, and he pestered her continuously for dates and disturbed his Sasuke-kun. She'd better start working out a way to surreptitiously ask Kakashi-sensei to pawn him off to some other team and get someone useful that could work with them. And she obviously meant a boy that wouldn't pester her with dates and didn't annoy Sasuke-kun just by existing. Thinking about his graduating schoolmates, she thought that only Aburame Shino would fit the bill. He was silent, strong and usually minded his own business. Swapping Naruto for Shino would both mean get rid of Naruto and send him to the dogs, almost literally since Shino's team is composed of Hyuga Hinata and Inuzuka Kiba. And she would gain a much better teammate from it. She decided. She would start looking into Genin team regulations to see if she could manage to swap those two and see if she could arrange it somehow without bringing attention to herself. She really hoped the team meeting finished fast. Now, she had a library to get to. Naruto looked up from the Chakra book with a note of satisfaction. High on boring theoreticals, he still forced himself not only into reading the material, but in actually understand them, asking questions to Iruka-sensei when a passage was unclear and realizing how many holes were being filled in his academic education by that combined effort. In the book were also numerous simple chakra control exercises, some like little games obviously thought out to teach to young children, but he mastered them all anyway. He now knew how chakra was produced, how to efficiently mold it. He had to correct a couple bad habits even there, how using hand seals was an incredibly efficient way of rapid molding chakra, but not an indispensable one when only 2 or 3 seals were required. In fact, most academic jutsu can be used even by Genin level ninja without hand seals with enough practice, and he wanted to be able to do it. He learned of the Sharingan and the Byakugan, especially the Sharingan's ability to both see chakra and memorize hand seals, making it dangerous to do them before Sasuke, if he wanted to keep family jutsu safe from him. And Kakashi-sensei, too, but he usually used the forehead protector to keep it covered so it wasn't as much an issue with him. He also learned of the possibility of shape and nature manipulation of chakra, but both were Jonin level skills and not included in the book. He would reread it a couple times and then, Akiko, would bring it back to the library, but now he returned to work on seals. He had a workable model of the blood seal and wanted to test it, and then compare it to the unactivated one on the copy he made in the likeness of the original one. His own blood opened it fine, he already checked. But now he had to find a donor to try to open it. He thought about Iruka, but he would wait the 2 days before the next lesson to ask him. And he had an idea about it. It has been too easy, really. He even thought about infiltrating the Konoha hospital as a nurse or something just to make it harder, but didn't want to harm someone by accident if he was asked to heal someone or assist a medic nin. He never thought it would be so easy to find a pervert in this village, but considering Kakashi-sensei's behavior, it wasn't that hard to believe. He simply had to walk to the hot springs and use his Orochi no jutsu before an old man with a kabuki makeup who was peeping on the women's side while giggling like a schoolgirl. He fountained so much blood that he drenched the scroll in it and still didn't open. The seal was a success. A pervert has been punished and in heaven, figuratively and almost literally, and he could finally complete the protection of his scroll. A successful day, after all. Damn brat, said Jiraiya, waking up later in a hospital bed. But even so, this event inspired him into writing. Gerard was waiting in the hot water for his lovely Helen, when suddenly he felt something. Akiko entered the library to return the book. 2 days later, he activated the blood seal in the family scroll with only a couple-minute imperfection to correct, made more because of ignorance of seals and the order of writing them than bad handwriting. He also rigged his apartment with the deadliest traps he was legally allowed to and started reading the family scroll with the help of the dictionaries. There were numerous references to the chakra circulatory system in the first quarter of it, so she was going to the counter to request the second book in his mother's list, the Chakra Pathways. She had to struggle hard to keep his cover when she met Sakura in the reading room, reading a large tome. Deciding that it would be too hard to keep in character before Sakura, she checked out the book and left to return home. This book was much easier to understand, because it had a lot of diagrams with the names of the various joints, channels and such. With the help of this book, he understood most of the first half of his family scroll and finally he could learn something from it. Apparently, this scroll was an introductory level to the family art, called White Jutsu. By using his bloodline ability, Stupid Fox again, he could not only heal himself and others, but also summon something called a pyrefly, or rather a swarm of them for the higher jutsu. About the pyreflies, apparently they are some kind of non-sentient energy beings that simultaneously exist both here and somewhere called the far plane, that sounded like some sort of afterlife. The process wasn't clear on how to summon more than one, but since there were references to gates, or something like that, he guessed they were explained in the Jonin book, the Celestial Gates. Apparently those things, beings, whatever were symbiont with chakra. Wherever there was chakra there were pyreflies, but only the white chakra could make them visible to the eye. He reread the instructions to learn how to summon one of those pyreflies and looked simple enough, even if a bit gruesome. Even so, at least he would eat well this evening. He left Konoha to go in the woods just outside the walls. There he found a torrent and fished for a while, until he caught a fish. Leaving a clone to get a few more to put in a bucket, he neared the fire and proceeded with the first step. His chakra due to the fox was completely ordinary, but the instruction required him to coat the still living fish with white chakra, so, to summon it, he cut his own palm with a kunai, and waited for his wound to close. As soon as it did, he felt the red chakra being consumed, and as it disappeared completely he pushed all the remaining white chakra in the fish before it dispersed. Luckily, the fish was small enough. Stealing his stomach, he cut off the head of the fish, killing it instantly, and then waited. The scroll said that the white chakra would allow him to feel the separation of the soul from the body and he had to follow it. The scroll said that the direction souls travel to go to the far plane is so completely alien to normal human experience that it was considered impossible to manage to follow it in the first try, or the second, or the 10th. About 5 minutes later, he felt it, the soul leaving the body and tried to follow, but as the scroll said, he couldn't. It was as if he was trying to move sideways in Kakashi's road of life. If he had an inkling of higher level math, he could have guessed that it was a sort of fourth dimension. After he lost the trail, he simply cleaned the fish to eat it later. 20 fishes later he managed to get a grip on that fake direction. Not enough to follow the soul, but enough that it didn't feel so alien anymore that his mind couldn't comprehend it. This is really hard, it must be an awesome technique, said Naruto, eating the cooked fish. He reread the scroll to get a few more hints. Apparently after death, the soul of a dead being left through something called the death gate, along with its chakra. Using the white chakra as bridge, he would touch the farplane barrier and allow entry to a few pyreflies. The more white chakra used, the more they would come forth. After that, I really have no idea what to do after that, since the next step of the technique requires at least knowing about those gates, he said aloud, while quenching the fire with his canteen. He tried to figure out what use was this part of the technique and read a few paragraphs ahead. Fortunately, his knowledge of kanji improved tremendously after reading all those books, and he somehow understood that he could use those pyreflies to congregate into something akin to a solid bunchen of powerful creatures of the farplane. A clone that wouldn't disappear with a single hit. And better yet, without a single handseal. Cool, he exclaimed, happy beyond measure. I have nominated you to the Chunin exams. These are the forms, said Kakashi, with an eye smile. Naruto thought this could be the first true reason for lateness he ever heard from his sensei. But even then it was unlikely he had been held for 4 hours just to get 3 pieces of paper. Sakura-chan appeared to think the same thing, but didn't comment about it. She looked really worried. The bastard, instead, just like him, was really happy about the news. No, happy wasn't the right word, he looked feral. You are free to think about it today. If you wish to participate, go to room 302 in the Academy building tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. He then disappeared. Naruto left, to find Iruka-sensei and tell him of the good news, and found him in the classroom, just after lessons. Naruto, started Iruka, nodding toward the form in his hands. Are you sure you want to do it? You could die, you know. I'm sure, Iruka-sensei, said Naruto somberly. Well, at least considering your progress in our lessons, at least I am sure that your trap making and sealing skills are at a solid genin level, and while Sakura is still better than you in trapping, neither of your teammates know about seals and its application in trap making. I have talked with Kakashi, too, after he nominated your team. Iruka looked a little downtrodden after that. He didn't look that interested in your progress, and I felt ashamed for him, really. Naruto, too, felt a little down after hearing that his own Jonin sensei was ignoring him. Was he so incompetent his Jonin sensei didn't think he could learn anything worthwhile? Despite him, Naruto, I am proud of your incredible progress. However, there is no more I am allowed to teach you on traps without your Jonin sensei's permission. We'll have to choose another area you are behind, and I fear it will have to wait until the end of the exams. I would suggest Genjutsu detection and dispel, especially since you did all those chakra control exercises. Thank you, Iruka-sensei. You are really the best, cried Naruto, leaving a contented Iruka behind. Naruto ran all the way to the torrent and returned to his fishing spot, to resume his Pyrifly summoning training. It was a pain-filled process, after all he had to stab his hand to do it, but on the fifth fish he managed to track down that slippery soul for a couple seconds when he suddenly felt himself drenched head to feet in water. He opened his eyes, expecting a prank or an attack, but he was perfectly dry, and alone. Completely alone. A small puff of smoke showed the place where his clone just slipped and fell into the river. How? Long rusted gears started to creak in Naruto's mind while he tried to process what actually happened. He tried to put together a logical explanation, and the only one he could come up with was so incredible and as well so incredibly awesome that he couldn't believe it. But searching back into his memories, that theory gained more and more credit. With trembling hands he performed the seal and summoned a clone. He immediately went into the woods, recovering the fishing pole and hiding it. And when he dispersed, Naruto realized his conclusion was correct. As soon as a shadow clone dispersed, his collected information came back to him. It really rocked his world, thinking of all the books he could read while he trained, the potential for infiltration and espionage missions. He never realized what a jackpot he picked up from the scroll of seals until now. He could expand Akiko's cover by having her seen in public, buying groceries, making acquaintances without losing his training time. He could spy the other genin to see how they train and copy the best ideas, not their techniques. There are already 2 copycats in his team. He could play a bit with Konohamaru and his friends, whom he neglected a bit in favor of his training these days. He had a whole childhood to make up for, after all. And with this, his worth to the team multiplied 1,000-fold as a scout. Beat that, bastard. With a face-splitting grin, he summoned 20 clones. Since to perform the summoning training he needed to hurt himself, only the original could perform it, but he sent the others to fish, to the library, to Konohamaru and to shop as Akiko like he thought just moments ago. And to a group of 5 clones he ordered to search the foreign genin under Henge to scout out the competition. He really was a little ashamed in not noticing this sooner. He could have done tons of training in time for the exam. But he would still pass them. They will not stop Uzumaki Naruto from becoming Hokage. With renewed energy he cleaned the fish, took the next one from the bucket and continued his training. That night, Naruto was ecstatic. He still was a long way from reaching the far plane from that damned fish, but his clones collected a ton of useful information. He saw all the other rookie genin teams, and Team 8 was still training. They were good, had a splendid teamwork, light years above theirs, each of them individually was better than him, and obviously better than Sakura, and had awesome clan jutsu. From what he discovered about the Aburame clan, he guessed Shino could easily beat Sasuke, too, unless Shino greatly underestimated the bastard's fire jutsu. Team 10 was lazing about in a restaurant, so he learned very little about them. He also scouted a few foreign teams, but none actually trained where he could see it undetected. Pity. Another Konoha genin team, he shivered at the memory. Green spandex, Living eyebrows in a sunset genjutsu was all he could remember before the clone dispersed himself from the trauma. However, he saw that eyebrows kid train like mad before that traumatic experience. If they encountered that boy, they would better avoid him. Konohamaru and his two friends Udon and Moegi were ecstatic to have him for an entire afternoon playing ninja. He had to be careful of not being hit, but it was good reflex training even if they were just academy students. Akiko borrowed both Basic Guide to the Elements and A Basic Guide to the Human Body for the dedicated ninja, and two clones read it from front to cover twice. The anatomy book would need a few more rereads to remember all those hard names of all those body parts in a human body, but the Guide to the Elements was a really basic book, which only explained the relation of the 5 elements and their good and bad points. It also touched briefly about the bloodline elements, like wood and ice, being a combination of 2 different elements and with different strength and weaknesses than their components. He planned to send Akiko tomorrow to buy a chakra card to see his own elemental affinity. And while he was at it, he could try the same with his white chakra and the fox Yuki for curiosity's sake. Even if elemental chakra conversion training was a Jonin level skill, knowing his element would mean knowing which elemental jutsu class he would learn the easiest. He checked himself on the mirror. His alarm clock read 8:30 and he was finishing storing food, weapons and tools into scrolls. He stored also books on edible plants and animals since he hadn't had time to study it. Bandages, splints and mobile casts filched from the hospital. About 400 exploding tag, 10 soldier and 10 blood replenishing pills, exchanged by Akiko, naturally, for about 600 of his best exploding tags. Clone labor was really useful. He contemplated buying a weapon, too, but using it while completely unskilled in its use was probably worse than being unarmed. Kunai and shuriken would have to suffice. He added a few extra empty scrolls and writing instruments to write seals with as an afterthought. He left his home ready to take on the world. Team 7 arrived at the academy building 20 minutes before the designated time. Naruto decided to not embarrass himself this time, at least not before foreign ninja. After all, he can always ask Sakura out as soon as they finish the test, and she will be surely more agreeable to it after they pass. Unfortunately, Sakura-chan still tried to woo the bastard. At least he didn't make a scene like Sakura-chan would have done if he tried to ask her out. If something must be said for the bastard, is that he treasures his public image. As a dark brooder sociopath, but an image nonetheless. Well, Sakura-chan will soon realize that the bastard is probably completely uninterested in her, thought Naruto, entering the building. Going to the second floor, they saw a lot of genin crowding a door. The doorplate read 302. I may be lame at genjutsu, but even I noticed we are just on the second floor. But maybe we of the Leaf have an unfair advantage. I know this building inside out, for all my pranks and years in these classrooms. Naruto didn't put a lot of thought to the little scene unfolding before his eyes with Sakura-chan and the bastard because he saw the same kid who almost mentally scarred him yesterday. Trying to remove that image again from his memory, he followed his team upstairs. However, Fuzzy Eyebrows, whose true name was Rock Lee, continued to haunt his memories by following them. Luckily, he wanted the Uchiha. He could keep him, too. With a nice ribbon to it. As long as he didn't hug that other guy again. When Fuzzy Eyebrows then blew a kiss towards Sakura, I really pitied her, even if she put him down even more harshly that she does me, without the bodily harm, though. Even then, Naruto watched closely the match between Lee and the bastard, and was satisfied that his first impression of the kid was correct. Fuzzy Eyebrows was a taijutsu wizard and could wipe the floor of all 3 of them even put together by playing to his strength. Not a good thought, that. Then the nightmare returned. Guy, that was the name of Super Fuzzy Eyebrows, the other half of the nightmarish spandex duo, appeared just in time to save the bastard's neck. They had the weirdest mentor-pupil relationship he ever thought possible. Sasuke and Sakura were aghast at the image, and for the first time since Wave even Naruto thought of his black-haired teammate with pity. Seeing that scene for the second time was a little less horrifying than the first, and he had had the option of virtual suicide to save his sanity. Still of common silent accord, the best teamwork they ever demonstrated, each of them proceeded with their own method of memory suppression and agreed to never speak of it to anyone for as long as they lived. After passing Kakashi-sensei, Team 7 entered the exam room, just to be ambushed. Sasuke-kun, yelled a girl's voice, throwing herself at the target of her affection. I missed you. Ino pig. Get off Sasuke-kun, replied Sakura, enraged. Naruto ignored the sideshow, wishing the bastard would finally choose Ino or any other fangirl so that Sakura could be free to date him. So you two have been entered here, so troublesome, said the lazy Shikamaru. Choji, beside him, was eating a pack of chips. Naruto looked for a moment at Shikamaru. Naruto knew the Nara was very smart. Much more than anyone he knew, actually, and if he had any idea. Shikamaru, have you any idea about the exam? Asked Naruto. Shikamaru looked around for a bit. Considering the layout and the room we are in, I would say it's a written exam of some kind. Naruto froze. AWW written exam. Naruto's brain went on an overdrive. His mind furiously trying to find a way around it. No choice. I'll have to cheat. I can use the shadow clones, but first I must test something out. He slipped away silently as soon as Shikamaru's attention was diverted by the arrival of Team 8. He created a clone to hear anything they would tell each other and fled to the bathroom. He created 2 new clones, one of them with the order of thinking a number, then disperse itself. As soon as it did, he received its memory of the number 14. The other clone too replied that same number aloud. I'm lucky, the memory share works towards other clones, too. He immediately summoned 30 clones, which transformed into random people and ran towards the library. One of them transformed itself into a pin. The original quickly put it on in a place where it could see a paper before it. Returning toward the test room, he slipped back inside during the attack of the sound genin and replaced the clone just as the proctors entered the room. Looking at the questions, Naruto thanked every divinity he ever heard of for Shikamaru's brain. Without his deduction he would be panicking right now. These questions are impossible. How can they expect us to be able to get them right? After about 5 minutes, he covered his chest around the pin to hide the small puff of smoke of his pin clone dispersing, and not so casually giving the questions it memorized to his clones in the library to start their research. The proctors didn't seem to have noticed. So far it's good. Now it's the library guy's turn. He tried to look thoughtful, and looked again at the blackboard. Those rules are a little fishy. Iruka-sensei would throw me out if he caught me cheating, not just a 2-point reduction. So they want us to cheat. Thanks again, Shika. I'll buy you ramen as soon as I can. It took about 20 minutes for the first library clone to disperse. He learned that the clones divided themselves into 9 groups of 3, each group to research a single question, with the remaining 2 to supervise and double-check the answers. At the end of the 45 minutes, Naruto managed to get only 6 of the 9 answers, but it would be plenty to pass, considering who his teammates were. A few minutes later, Morino Ibiki, the head examiner, spoke up. Now it's time for the 10th question, but before hearing it, there are a couple extra rules about it. Murmuring was heard among the room. The first is a desperation rule. You'll have to decide whether or not to answer this question. A sand girl jumped out asking, what do you mean, decide to whether answer or not? What would happen if we don't? Simple, said Ibiki with a stony face, your points will immediately drop to 0, and you'll fail, along with your team. A couple guys then angrily asked, so what is the point of asking? We'll certainly want to answer it. Ah, but there is the other rule to keep in consideration. This time no one interrupted. If you decide to try to answer the 10th question and fail, you'll lose the right to ever participate in another Chunin selection exam. How can there be such an absurd rule? There are people here who took more than an exam, roared Kiba. With a sinister laugh, the head proctor calmly said, You have been unlucky. This year I make the rules. But I'm giving you the possibility of retiring in return the next time. Those who don't have the gut to answer the question can try in 6 months in the next exam, or even next year. Naruto was enraged. Banned from the Chunin exams for life. Is he out of his mind? Sakura, meanwhile, was smirking. Since she had just spent a week reading and rereading rules and regulations, she knew it was a bluff. An incredibly artful bluff, very convincing, too. He must be a professional. She looked toward Sasuke and she saw him completely determined and ready for anything. He certainly would not drop out. She then looked at Naruto. She really thought he would have panicked during the whole exam, but every time she looked at him he was relaxed. She caught him even purposefully writing in his paper. Even if she had no idea how, she was sure Naruto had managed to cheat without being caught. There was absolutely no way that Empty Head could solve any of these questions by himself. And with his pigheadedness, he would not drop out either. This first test was in their pocket. Ibiki continued to put pressure after pressure on the assembled genin. Naruto was still incensed, but restrained himself. It would be a waste to get himself expelled after all that hard work cheating. He even stopped Hinata, who was sitting right beside him, from giving up by looking in her eyes and letting her see his determination. She blushed from head to neck, but she managed to not faint. And not so casually forgot everything about retiring. After about 15 minutes and a sea of dropouts, Ibiki shocked most of the remaining genin by telling them that they passed the first test, explaining how information sometimes may be more valuable than a life, and that a squad leader had to have a strong decision-making ability. At that point, a crazy girl threw himself into the room, crashing the window, hanging a poster with her name with kunai thrown to the ceiling, and presented herself as Mitarashi Anko, second examiner. The first thing Sakura thought seeing her was that she was strongly reminded of Naruto. The hyper-examiner led the genin through Konoha, outside the walls and finally to a forest enclosed in a high fence with a lot of closed gates to bar easy access. Or probably escape of whatever was inside, due to the examiner's welcome speech presenting it as the forest of death. Naruto tried to pay attention to the scary examiner lady, really tried, but behind him, there was someone that felt somewhat wrong, but he had absolutely no idea how or why. He only knew that this insight came to him through those minute amounts of white chakra that still lingered after yesterday's training with the fish. He wished again for the death of that stupid fox, so he could explore his heritage as it deserved. His distraction, however, cost him, because the examiner singled him out and threw a kunai, grazing his cheek and then creepily licking his blood, while telling him that guys like him were the first to die. And the guy who gave him the wrongness vibes, held out her kunai with his tongue. A honest-to-God meter-long tongue. If that didn't deserve the freak waves he felt from the genin, nothing did. Still dazed, he accepted the form to sign and went with his teammates to collect their scroll. "I'll keep it," said Sasuke, pocketing their heaven scroll while they walked toward the gate number 12. While they were alone, with just a Chunin examiner to bar the gate until the prescribed time, Sakura turned to Naruto. "How did you cheat in the written exam? I know those questions were above you, but I've seen you write." Sasuke paid attention, too. After all, he too was curious about it. "Yesterday I discovered a feature of the shadow clone jutsu that I had never noticed before," started Naruto. "When a shadow clone vanishes, whatever it learned gets back to the original. Not only that, just before the test I verified that the information goes to all the other still existing clones, too." "How could you not know, Dobi? Didn't you read the Forbidden Scroll to learn it?" asked Sasuke, envious of the fact that even for a little he has been allowed to read such a collection of powerful jutsu. I didn't have that much time to read it," he said, trying to cover the fact that at the time he couldn't read most of the kanji, making up the finer explanations. "I thought I had very little time, so I just read how to perform it and practiced. I think Kakashi-sensei assumed I read it too, because he never told me about it, and before Wave I only used that technique in battle." Sakura at that point asked. And after wave? Naruto sighed and pulled out his explosive tags and scrolls. Even if it pained to share the result of his hard work with the bastard, his survival in this exam relied too much on teamwork. I found a couple books on sealing and I asked Iruka-sensei for help. I used clones as additional manpower to make a few hundreds of exploding tags while I trained. I made about 1,000 of these babies, but I swapped most of them at a ninja supply store for these. He distributed 3 soldier pills and 3 blood replenishing pills to each of his teammates, as well as about 100 tags. In this scroll, pointing the side of his backpack, I have sealed a few first aid material, bandages, mobile casts and a couple generic use medicines. I had very little of it, but I thought it could be handy. This other scroll, instead has a few camping supplies. No tent, unfortunately, it's too heavy and bulky for the current level of my storage seals, but I have taken my bedsheets to build a makeshift one if needed. This last one has a few dozen of my extra kunai to build traps with. They are not blood-coated, just use a drip of chakra on the seal and it will release the content. Sakura was actually impressed, but tried to not show it, else the blonde start asking for dates. Sasuke instead was glad that for once the dobe was not being dead weight, actually learned something that could be of use to him but that he wouldn't personally bother with, and if what he said about the clones was true then he could use him to scout ahead, avoid traps and ambushes and conserve chakra for worthy fights. Sakura then asked about the first exam, trying to return to the original topic. Ah, yes. I asked Shikamaru what he thought the first exam would be and he correctly guessed it being a paper test. Since I know I suck at them, I planned on cheating from the beginning. Sakura palmed her face. Of all the things, Naruto managed to do exactly what the examiners wanted him to just because he already knew he would fail any kind of paper test. I created a couple dozen of clones, had one henge into a pin that I fixed on my clothes, sent the others hanged as random people to the library and awaited the test. After a few minutes to wait for my pin clone to memorize the question, I hid it and let it disperse covering the smoke and noise. Since it would have been the only sign of me cheating in the whole exam, it was worth the eventual 2 points, but none of the proctors wrote anything around that moment, so I guess it went unnoticed. And at the library your clones got the question, but how did you get the answers? Surely you couldn't ask the people in there? Asked Sakura. A shadow clone is a really good copy of me, Sakura-chan. It copies my memories, mind and personality. In practice I had 3 copies of me to each question, giving me something like 2 hours to get each answer right, with complete access to research material. Even then, I only got 6 of them, they were really hard. Sakura again was impressed with the fact that he even managed to get one of those questions in 2 hours, consulting materials or not. She clearly underestimated, a little, his intelligence. Sasuke instead was forming a new plan for this exam. With the dobe able to create an army of cannon fodder, he could be free to challenge the good fighters to prove himself. He pocketed the exploding tags after a brief check, and he noted that they looked good. He was no expert on seals, but having seen hundreds of these tags in his training he knew how to distinguish a good one from a failure or a dud. All of these were rather good, no wonder the shopkeeper has been willing to trade them for the pills. The dobe was becoming really interesting. Perhaps, unlike the fangirl, he could be eventually trained to become a worthy rival to push himself to an even higher level. He suppressed a sigh, since it would have to wait until the end of the exam. He could still hope the last part consisted in individual matches, though. Alright, change of plans. Naruto, you said you learned seals. Do you have a spare scroll? Naruto took out his writing implements and a blank scroll. Sasuke immediately started to copy the appearance of the heaven scroll in the empty one and gave the completed fake one to Sakura, checking it with the help of his Sharingan. It was a perfect copy, if you cannot see chakra, naturally. Naruto smirked, thinking of it as the first prank he had ever seen performed by the Uchiha. Pass it here, Sakura. I have a little addition in mind. said Naruto, unsealing about 40 kunai from his scrolls. Don't ruin it, Dobi, said Sasuke, but he wasn't too worried. Naruto made a face to Sasuke, but as soon as he received the scroll, he became serious and began writing a complex array of seals on the interior of the fake heaven scroll, then a small quick one on each of the 40 kunai. Finally he placed them over the scroll seal, then gathered a little bit of chakra in a precise order in the seal and the multi-purpose ninja knives vanished in a small cloud of smoke. Now it's a little surprise packet. It primes like an explosive tag, even when closed, and it will explode exactly 4 seconds later, throwing all 40 kunai in all directions for added range damage. It's a C rank trap seal, and he gave Sakura the scroll back. It will make no fire or smoke when active, so be careful. And remember, if we are ever pressed to release a scroll, give them that, he said to Sakura with a smirk. Sakura nodded and Sasuke smirked. Sasuke then turned to Naruto. Can we seal away our scroll? Looking at his storage scrolls. Naruto tiredly shook his head. No, it's above my level to seal something that itself contains seals and we cannot open it to verify if there are any inside. Sasuke accepted it and pocketed the true heaven scroll. Considering the words of the examiner, it's likely, said Sasuke, not bothering to tell them that he could clearly see the chakra in the original scroll with his Sharingan. He then looked at the clock. Less than a minute to the start. Prepare yourselves, it's time. Naruto, as soon as we get in I want a scouting perimeter. As many as you can spare from the fighting and at least 100 meters ahead of us at any time, preferably hanged into the 3 of us. Sakura, your first priority is checking the environment for any genjutsu. Leave the direct fighting to Naruto and me and pester them with traps or ranged weapon. Make use of the tags, too, we have more than enough to last all 5 days. Sasuke felt satisfied that his teammates nodded and obeyed his orders, while the Chunin at the gate opened it and let them inside. Naruto raised his hand abruptly. There is a single rain nin that is following one of the decoy squads, in that direction. He pointed on their left. I've not seen his teammates. I have no idea if he has the scroll or not. Sasuke nodded. Let's get him, we can trade him for the scroll if he hasn't one. Sakura was a little apprehensive at fighting another ninja, but it was imperative to get that second scroll or they would fail. She hardened her resolve and nodded, then they followed Naruto toward the decoys. The fake group stopped, to apparently discuss how to reach the tower, while the true Team 7 positioned to do a counter-ambush to the lone nin. As Naruto said they couldn't see his scroll, but he had plenty of covered area to hide it. Activating his Sharingan, Sasuke threw a score of shuriken-delivered wires to tie the ninja to the tree he was currently spying from, catching him completely by surprise. The decoys smirked and left the area, to search for the prisoner's teammates. Sasuke quickly searched the genin and found the scroll. Unfortunately it was another heaven scroll. What a pity, said Naruto, pocketing the new scroll that Sasuke was passing him, while they were bounding away from the area they captured the rain nin in. It's still one more team that won't pass the exam if we hold on it, said Sasuke. Suddenly Naruto froze, and began yelling, an enemy attack. My clones are being, and a humongous blast of wind sent him away, while Sakura and Sasuke had the time to grab a tree trunk and managed to stay in place only thanks of their chakra. Kunai ready, they awaited for a few moments, then they saw Naruto returning to them, a little ruffled, but almost unharmed. Before he could get near, though, Sasuke got on his guard and asked, what did you give me before entering the forest? Naruto looked a little confused, but said, I gave you our scroll, what else? Sakura and Sasuke immediately attacked, but the fake Naruto avoided them easily. Kuku. Good, Sasuke-kun, I see you managed to see through my disguise. Naruto threw several expletives while flying through the air, and landed, right in front of the biggest snake he had ever seen. It's huge, he said, but then Snake caught him from behind, with its tail that was burrowing underground while he was gaping. A couple seconds later he found himself swallowed whole. A wave of the most horrifying killing intent he could imagine was paralyzing them in the spot. He could literally see his death delivered by that grass ninja. With a supreme effort of will, he managed to break out of the fear by canceling it with pain and managed to save himself and Sakura from the kunai thrown by the enemy ninja. Sakura tried to ask him if he was alright, but Sasuke stopped her before she could speak up. It has been a long time from the last time he has been so scared, since his brother. And to even taunt them she swallowed the earth scroll in its possession. They had no choice but to escape. That freak was too damn strong. Blasting out from the snake with the creative use of the shadow clones, Naruto ran in the direction the blast of wind came from, until he saw Sasuke and Sakura stalked by the creepy tongue guy that felt weird before the start of the exam. Only he was slithering around a tree branch like a snake. Talk about creepy. Creating 5 clones and ordering them to provide cover fire, he threw a bundle of projectiles on the path of the ninja, before reaching his teammates. Sasuke was still shaken, and yelled to Naruto, "Naruto, you must flee. There is an abyss between him and us." The grass ninja laughed, with the creepiest laugh he ever heard. Kuku. Good, Sasuke-kun, you are learning, a prey must try to flee from the predator. Then, Sasuke deactivated his Sharingan, and told Sakura. Sakura, give him the scroll. We can't beat him. Sakura, despite knowing which scroll he was talking about, yelled, but, Sasuke-kun. Sasuke had no idea if Sakura was simply acting or not. In his panic to escape he simply grabbed the trap scroll, primed it quickly and threw it to the grass nin. Kuku. I see, you offer another prey to the predator in the hope it will find it more alluring. He caught the scroll in one hand, smiling. 2 seconds after he caught it, it exploded, raining kunai, while Sasuke, Sakura and Naruto fled with all their might. Sasuke knew that a ninja of that level wasn't likely to be dead after such a simple trap, but added with the fact that Naruto spammed the area with clones in their likeness increased their chance for survival significantly. That he basically owed this chance to escape to the dobe never touched his mind. However, his escape lasted only a few minutes. A giant snake bigger than the one who swallowed Naruto blocked his way, showing a singed but otherwise healthy ninja, who now had a sound headband. Kuku, very good, Sasuke-kun, that has really been entertaining, but now I want to see what you are able to do. And then jumped in his direction. Sasuke found himself alone. Evidently in his panic he joined 2 clones instead of the true Sakura and Naruto. And they have been destroyed by the amazing ninja, who surely as he was there, it was not a genin. He would have to fend for himself for a little while. Swallowing his panic he reactivated the Sharingan and fought with everything he had, in the hope to survive for a little longer. Naruto and Sakura managed to reach Sasuke only after the grass. Or rather sound nin released his fangs from Sasuke's neck. Naruto was petrified by fear, which gave way to an incredible rage at seeing his teammate in that condition. Red chakra flooded his system, consuming his body but giving him incredible power. The sound nin immediately recognized the source of his power, and toyed a little with the container of the 9-tailed fox, but was a little disappointed. While he had plenty of power, he was a little more than a berserker, completely unfit to be amongst his elite soldiers. However, this power could be a problem in the incoming invasion, so he caught Naruto in the neck using just his tongue, and proceeded to place a 5-element seal on him, throwing him away like garbage as soon as he was done. Fortunately, Sakura managed to save his life by pinning his shirt to a tree with a thrown kunai. Kuku, that's been really fun. My name is Orochimaru, little girl. Tell Sasuke that if he wants more of the power I just gave him, he will have to come to me. He vanished in the ground after that, and Sakura was feeling out of her depth. Quickly checking the status of his 2 teammates, he realized that while Naruto had no visible injuries despite having seen him get a through beating, Sasuke was feverish and something black was forming in his neck, some kind of seal. Remembering Naruto medical and camping supplies, she quickly found a hiding place and built an emergency refuge. The first aid supplies in the scroll were very few, but at least there were a couple medicines to lower a fever. Realizing that this would be a very long day, she prepared to stand guard as long as it was needed. Gathering all their weapons, including Naruto remaining extra kunai, she began rigging trap after trap. Naruto awoke in a sewer. It was probably the strangest place he awoke, ever. "Hello, Naruto-chan," said a feminine voice. He recognized it. It was that mysterious voice. The one that gave him his family scroll. He looked around, frantically, until his eyes fixed on that strange ball of multicolored light, just like in Wave. What are you?" he asked the flame. "What you are looking at is a pyrifly. I'm simply using it to communicate with you, Naruto-chan." "Ah, so this is a pyrifly?" he asked, curious. He admired it. Again, it was surely pretty to watch. He guessed it got the name pyrifly because it looked like a flaming firefly, with a multicolored flame, at least. "You still haven't realized it, right?" What?" As the scroll said, fireflies exist simultaneously both on the physical plane and the far plane, the land of the dead. So, someone with our bloodline can use a pyrifly to communicate from into the far plane." A horrible suspect flooded his mind. "Are you?" "Yes, you finally seem to have got it, Naruto-chan. I am Uzumaki Kushina, and was, your mother." "Mom," he said, not able to keep his eyes from watering. "I'm really sorry, Naruto-chan. Your father is, too, for leaving you all alone all this time. However, I think you know who we have to thank for our separation." Can I talk to him, too?" asked Naruto, forgetting the little detail that he still had to discover his identity. "I'm sorry, Naruto-chan. Only someone with the white chakra bloodline can communicate through fireflies. I can relay messages, though, but he will know everything we talked about as soon as we finish. But I thought the fox was blocking my bloodline." "He is. Remember what happened to you while you were awake?" He remembered the battle with the tongue freak. The Yuki. "My body is currently purging the Yuki, isn't it?" "Right on the first, Naruto-chan." Where are we?" "This is the seal, Naruto-chan. You are here just with your mind and you are currently unconscious. We are here because this is a perfect opportunity to teach you how to speed up the death of the fox." "Really?" He looked around. It was fitting that something built to house that stupid fox resembled a sewer. The monster didn't deserve any better. "Yes. Look at those pipes." The pyrifly hovered toward the pipes in the ceiling. "The white ones are your chakra, full of the power of your bloodline. The red ones come from the fox. Come with me, and we'll see their origin." Following the pyrifly, they quickly reached an immense room. Within it they could see a likewise enormous prison kept closed by a slip of paper with the word, "seal," on it. On the other side, there was a giant fox. Its fur was flaking and diseased looking and had just 3 tails left. It was unconscious, too. "So, now it is the Sanbi no Kitsune," Naruto said, with a smirk. "Well, you could call it that," said Kushina, and Naruto could imagine her smile. "However, let's not disturb it. If it rouses up it could become unpleasant. Let's go to the really important place." Naruto followed the pyrifly again, following the pipes in the ceiling, until he reached another big room. This room had what looked like a house heating system. The 2 pipes converged into a big, something black and a blue pipe left toward the darkness. Each pipe had a valve of some kind and the black box had a few control levers and dials. "This is the place where the seal mixes Yuki with white chakra. The seal was supposed to be under maintenance at least once every 2 years, to accommodate your increased chakra capacity. Unfortunately, no one living knows that the efficiency of the seal could deteriorate with time." The pyrifly hovered around, showing him each control lever or dial as she named them. "This is the place that has just been sealed thanks to your opponent," said Kushina, hovering over a paper labeled 5-element seal, over a red button named, Emergency. Sealed. That tongue freak put another seal on me. Yes, Naruto-chan. This is the adrenaline safety feature that allows a controlled burst of Yuki to flow into your body if you perceive a deadly danger. You'll degenerate into a berserker, but you'll be much stronger, just like I wrote in the letter. Evidently your enemy was a very powerful ninja. I'll say. Now what do these do? Indicating all the controls. The valves on the pipes regulate the amount of the relevant chakra allowed in the mixing chamber. This one, instead, the amount of Yuki released on your system. I strongly suggest to leave that one alone unless you want to have more foxy accessories than the whisker marks. Those extra accessories would still disappear, but in a few years, after the death of the fox. Its original design made it so that the default Yuki absorption rate was in the safe side of the limit between temporary alteration to the vessel and semi-permanent ones. Temporary alteration would reverse in a few weeks after the final death of the prisoner. Semi-permanent ones would require years to reverse. And if you really exaggerate, you may end up with completely permanent alterations. You would still be human, because they would all be purely cosmetic changes even if you gained claws or similar things, but no one would believe you without extensive medical exams. Naruto shivered at the idea of being a medical lab specimen for the curiosity of some doctor. Now, what you should do, is to use this dial to keep the rate of white chakra to Yuki around the 1.5 value. Naruto looked at the current setting. It currently read 0.205. What the? Yes, it was a good setting for a newborn, having little chakra and needing most of it to grow up. But I'm no longer a newborn. Right. You have a lot more chakra, now. Beware, though, putting this setting back to the nominal value will considerably reduce your chakra regeneration rate, because much more of the chakra generated by your body is going in here to kill the fox. Hey, wait a moment. If not all my generated chakra is used to kill the fox, why does all of it becomes ordinary chakra? The mixer absorbs the properties of the leftover white chakra to power itself. Note that all your chakra flows through it. The pyrifly hovered toward the incoming pipes. How long would it take to finish the fox if I set it back to the nominal value? Asked Naruto. The pyrifly hovered over a couple of gauges, then replied. Around half an year, maximum. Naruto smiled. It was looking good. Can I place it even higher than that? Why yes, but if it gets any higher than 5.0 your body will not receive enough chakra to live, much less move or perform jutsu. What do you have in mind? I was thinking of leaving at nominal value for most of the day, and change it around 3.0 during the night. The pyrifly hovered for a few minutes in complete silence. I asked my great-grandfather about it. Luckily he was still around. He said it's an innovative way of using the seal, since no one has been that old still having its prisoner. All the demons previously killed that way by our clan were much weaker than the 9 tails and the seals were properly maintained. If you can access this room whenever you wish to, feel free to do as you planned. Naruto nodded. The days of the fox were numbered, now. Since you are here, what are the celestial gates? I seem to remember having put a challenge to get the book yourself in the letter, Naruto-chan, she said in a taunting voice. Oh, shut up, Mom. He said, not really angry. He heard his mom laugh, and he tried to memorize it. He may not get another opportunity. Oh, well, remember this. Once you master the scroll I left you, I'll give you the next one. Now it's time for you to wake up. You could still be in danger. I cannot see the outside world. And remember that once you learn to summon fireflies in the waking world, we'll be able to talk again. Hearing that, his motivation to master all the contents of the scroll increased 100-fold. And another piece of advice, since you have to wound yourself to do the main exercise, try to give a very good look at how your white chakra heals you. It's a hint for the first of the white jutsu, Naruto-chan. Naruto smiled. Now go. And goodbye, Naruto-chan. Goodbye, Mom. He turned around and ran toward the exit. and awoke to the scene of Team Guy and Team 10 leaving the area, wondering for a minute why did it look like a war zone, all riddled with still smoking craters and riddled with kunai. Then he remembered all the exploding tags he gave them. Sasuke and Sakura were looking around and Sakura had an earth scroll in her hand. He checked himself and found the Rain Team Heaven scroll still in its place. All they had to do was to reach the tower. Piece of cake. Okay, maybe it wasn't that simple. Sasuke had gotten strange, he kept feeling weak at random moments and Sakura could not keep her eyes off him. He could swear she slept with her eyes open and fixed on him in her first 12 hours of rest. Well, maybe it was a bit of an exaggeration, but surely she was smothering him. His newly reduced chakra regeneration could be felt when he used the shadow clones, but it was tolerable. He still had the soldier pills if things got dicey. He managed to get back to the seal whenever he wished by meditating, similar to how he searched for the farplane, so he started the fox extermination regime he told his mother. Away from the eyes of his team, he also practiced the fish killing exercise, with 2 fish at once, to do it faster. Naturally he killed them at different times. Now he regularly managed to follow those fish for about 10 seconds. Apparently not enough, yet. After 2 days of Sasuke and Naruto being unconscious and another 2 to let Sakura and Sasuke recover, they were on their last day to get to the tower. He had already seeded the area with clones, to find a safe route, when he suddenly groaned. Do you know, there is that Rain guy of the first day, and his 2 friends, and they got tricked again by a decoy team. We don't have time for those losers. If they got caught twice with the same trick they are too weak to pass this exam and they no longer have the scroll, said Sasuke. Ignore them and let's get to the tower. Naruto nodded, smirked a bit, created and dispersed a clone with the orders and left. They reached the tower 2 hours later without any problems. What are they doing? Said the first of the Rain Nin to the second. I have no idea. It seems they are playing a card game, said the third. It looks like strip poker, the pink-haired one just yelled in frustration and removed her jacket. Do we attack, or do we wait until? We'll wait to see if the girl continues to lose. Agreed. Stupid perverts, thought the clone hidden behind them,